be very, very quiet. We're starting another sculpt today. Yeah. Indeedy. Okay. Give me just a second here. I am now, as things stand, waiting on a specific patron to show up and say, "Hi, I'm here." And they're not here yet, so... Boom. Okay. Yep. Alright, so we had somebody scheduled for now. I haven't heard from them today. So I'm hoping they show up. Anyway, so this might... If they don't show up by 6:30, then I'm going to go ahead and I'll show how to make a new morph for the figures, which I think I did about way back in the ancient times of the channel. And yes, I am being heard. Okay, good. Had audio issues earlier today. Namely that I started broadcasting with the microphone not plugged into the computer. And then I had to reset the program. This one right here that I'm dealing with. So yeah. Like I said, waiting until 6:30. If the person I'm scheduled for today doesn't show up, I'll make a Catman or Tabaxi morph and show you how I make them and how they load into Daz Studio and how to save it. And hello, Kim! How are we today? What is this? You have the plague. Which? Black plague? Bubonic plague? Sunday plague? You gotta go to work on Monday? Or just like, you know, cough, cough, half, hack, hack, I feel pleh. Possibly the best thing I ever ordered. Yeah. See that sign that says Mechanigagon? This is not one of Godzilla's enemies, no matter how much that name looks like it should be. Mechanagon. It's a whole boatload of FEP film sheets for the Photon. I know you mentioned you were going to be getting you either have or are going to be getting a Photon, Kim. That is probably the best thing you can spend about $20-something on is 6 film sheets for that, because it's so daggum annoying to change those things. And we're waiting on more people to show up. Yay! So, as you may or may not know, I have plans for a Patreon for a Kickstarter coming up. I'm still waiting on my concept art. Waiting. It's going to be really big. And it's not going to be dragons at all. You don't know how many Dragonborn I've made recently. Lots of Dragonborn. And that's not even counting the ones I made for stuff. You know, anyway. And I'm probably going to end up making more Dragonborn because, as I've said, starting this week, my weekdays are going to be making the miniatures for my Wednesday night D&D game, because everyone had to make new characters. Like Tuesday. Tuesday will be a half-elven mage casting a spell and holding a book and probably looking a little bit naive, as much as I can get that across. Almost everyone's playing something that has dark vision. After the debacle of the last campaign, where we had half the party had no dark vision of any kind, and half the adventure took place in pitch black. Yeah. Total debacle. I mean, we had like 4 Dragonborn in the last campaign, including my druid. And oh, okay. Okay, give me just a second here. There we go. Okay, apparently, my patron for tonight is in the Twitch lobby. So, and there he is. Hello, John. Okay, so we got ready. Switch out what legs are which. Okay. Now, John, do you have an idea on what you want me to sculpt tonight? Like I said, about the only limits I've got, nothing copyrighted, so like no C-3PO, no Space Marine, no Han Solo. The more humanoid, not human, humanoid, the better. And, just, you know, that's about the primary limitations. So, and specific likenesses, like making the figure look exactly like John Lovitz. It's a bit more than can be done in a 2-hour show. Male half-giant barbarian. Okay. Like a rhinestone cowboy. Okay, for the half-giant. Are you looking for it to resemble the half-giants specifically from Dark Sun? Since that's the only place I know of that has half-giants. Or are they also in Pathfinder, I guess? Ah, 3.5. Well, no, Dark Sun is D&D, John. It's a world setting for Dark Sun. That's probably why it's in the Psionic Splat book in 3.5. Okay. So basically, he's going to have slightly larger hands and feet and be broader than a normal human. Now, like I said, Dark Sun is a campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons. It's a world with almost no metal left, so your weapons are bone and obsidian and stone and things like that. Oh, what the? Oh, screw you. No political calls during my show, thank you very much. Yeah, so anyway, there's a lot of psionics in it for some strange, bizarre reason. And it's really warped because magic drains life. If you're a good guy wizard, you cast your spells by slowly draining your mana from a large area, which means you cast one spell per 2 or 3 rounds. If you're an evil one, you just suck it all up, causing damage to plant life all around you, and you throw your fireball, but that's why the entire world is a desert now. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and click on over to Daz Studio, and we're going to load up the basic mail. Now, what I'm going to do to represent the basic half-giant, I'm going to start by giving it a bit of dwarf because they've got really large hands and feet, and are really broad at the shoulder. But this also shrinks him, so we're going to do one other. We're going to scale. I'm going to make him a little bit larger. So just as a comparison, the typical human compared to a half-giant. I can make him a little bit bigger because we want him to really look like he's about Andre the Giant size. Yeah, like about there. That is how big this guy will be. This does mean that it will make his base really big too. Unless we want to have him mostly standing. Oh, why did I do that? I meant to click this one so I can see there. Okay. Well, yeah, it's the problem is if when you reach 20th level in as a wizard in Dark Sun, if you're a good guy, a preserver, you start transforming into a supernatural diaphanous being that is immediately slaughtered and killed before you can finish the transformation by one of what happens with the Defilers, because they start turning into dragons. And I don't necessarily mean a classic dragon. I mean like a 15-foot tall, long-limbed, skinny, gawky, disgusting-looking humanoid dragon, and then eventually into this monstrous thing that makes Vermithrax pejorative look all friendly and cuddly. Anyway, so what kind of weapons and that do you want your half-giant barbarian to be carrying? Also, is he wearing armor? Is he wearing regular clothing? And if he's wearing clothing, what clothing is he wearing? Double bearded axe. Okay, I think one of my great axes is a double bearded axe. If not, I can cheese. I can totally cheat. Shield, backsword. Basically, you want an axe with that on both sides, right? Wrong thing. There we go. Belt and loincloth. Pauldron on one side. Okay. What I can do, I'm going to go ahead and select the fingers and I'm actually going to go ahead and start up 3D Studio Max. Yes, that's 3D Studio Max 2011. It's old. Okay, while we're waiting on 3D Studio Max to load up, what kind of pose do you want to use for him? Do you want him standing? Do you want him raising his axe to go chop something, which is going to be kind of awkward because his arms are short and his shoulders are broad, so the axe would be like right here? Or do you want like down and ready to go for okay, here we go. File, import. And what we're going to do is we're going to props. And then old beaked axe right hand. Okay. Okay. And now I'm going to hit this. What that does is that means that when I rotate it... Oh, yeah, that reminds me. Effect pivot. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. Copy. And then I'm going to select its handle and delete it. And I'm going to attach them to each other. So they're now one item. I'm going to select down here, and I'm going to drag it back a bit that way. And select the rest of it and a bit there. There. Okay. We're going to hide him for the purposes of setting this axe up. I'm going to load in yet another mail. And I'm going to load in yet another prop, which in this case is just going to be the regular beaked axe. And then I'm going to delete that beaked axe. Coming back into here, I'm going to File, Export, Selected, and it's going into Props, Object, Double Beaked Axe R. I can come back in later and add this into my library. Alright, now I come in here, File, Import, Props, Double Beaked Axe right hand, accept, and then I'm just going to parent it to the right hand. File, Save As, Support Assets, Speaker Prop Assets, into Props, Double Beak Axe R hand, and product name Miniatures. Accept. Okay, now I'm going to delete him. The reason I did this is because we want it to load into the proper spot. Now first I'm going to give it a beaked axe in the right hand to pose his hand, because I haven't gone through the usual for him. Double beaked axe right hand. Oh. Yeah, it helps if I select the guy. Then when I do it, yeah, there we go. And he has that is the basic geo for the double beaked axe. We can do fancy things to the blade and to the handle. Side swinging the axe. Have you ever seen the game, as my brain just shut down, I played this bloody game. It's by Games Workshop. It was like, it's like one part, it's like Clue meets D&D. Oh god, my brain is kapoofed. Come up here while I go search for what I'm trying to think of. Games Workshop dungeon game. Was it Dungeon Quest? No, it wasn't Dungeon Quest. up. Games Workshop board game. It's a Hero Quest. The original Hero Quest. That's what it was. If you look at ever look at the cover of the original Hero Quest, I'm going to go ahead and switch back now. That kind of pose. Yes, he's got a sword, but this is like... Obviously, we don't want him looking like he's got, you know... Yay! Okay, so what we're going to do... We are now going to go ahead and pose him. If he's going to have a loincloth, you said, so we can't just pose him. We've got to actually get his clothing, because there's actually... Where is it? Loincloth, there it is. There. Let's hide the loincloth and hide the axe. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to manipulate the hiccups that I've got. Okay, anyway. Bend forward. Side to side. Bend forward. Side to side. Bend forward. Side to side. I'm going to bend a bit further forward and a bit less side to side. Okay. Let's look at the front view. Alright, I'm going to bend it forward. Oh, no, not that. Not the whole thing, just the foot. Oh, yeah, that's right. I would help if I, because it's still thinking it's got the axe. There we go. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to side to side it just a little bit more to get it more even. Okay, now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pin translation and rotation on that foot, and then pin translation and rotation on that foot. It's as if we've just glued this feet in place. Now, I'm going to maneuver the hip to make him a bit more dynamic. Okay. So he's going to be reared back, ready to go for a huge strike. Gonna bend backwards. Not quite that far. Going to be mostly from the upper torso. And now we're going to make the axe visible so that we can pose the arms properly. Okay. And now we're going to grab the hand and make it go side to side to really bring it out. Now the shoulder goes forward, bending it. Okay, so we need to go ahead and side to side a little bit more. Yeah. Actually, let's see what happens if we take this sucker and we Z-scale it. Or Z-translate it a little bit there. Now, Z-scale. Alright, now we're going to go on the top view so I can try and place this hand nice and properly. And then the left view. Again, so I can place the hand kind of properly down here. Okay. He's about to seriously put the hurtin' on something. I'm just gonna Z-rotate it just... Oh, no, I better not. That Z-rotate did not come out in the right spot. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to select the body, and just because it's going to be weird, a weird reason, I'm going to load in a left-handed weapon just to give it a basic open pose, and then I'm going to select that hand side to side, and now I'm going to put it into position and bring it down, and then okay, so we need, whoop, did it, yes, side to side a little bit more. Let's use that so we can and just a little bit back. And there we have his basic pose for him. I'm going to assume he's kind of yelling. And we also now need to pose the loincloth. We can tweak the posing of the loincloth. So, how does this looking so far, John? You liking this? Now, the other thing we got to do is we got to make sure that the bases fit. Now, earlier today we had somebody mention that you we have problems loading an STL file into Dev Studio, and that's right. It doesn't like STL files. I do most of my work with OBJ. A lot of slicers don't like OBJ. You got to use STL. So I use one program to convert back and forth. When I first created the bases, for example, they were in OBJ. I used another program to save them as STL. Anyway, there's one problem with having such a broad stance and such a big figure. And that's that when we come in and load in the bases, let's say we go for a rocky base, it's small. He fits on the base, but barely. And his foot sticks off the base. Half giants are supposed... What are they? Are half giants supposed to be... Oh, how big is he? Well, he's a half giant. He is intended to be big. But he's not quite size large. This is how big he is. They count as size medium for game balance purposes. Because if they use... Yeah. They're honking big, but they're not size large. Pretty much like a Goliath or a Furbolg. They're technically size medium. So they're supposed to be on that same size base as everybody else. But we can see what happens with that. Now let me go to the front view. Okay, one thing I have to do real quick. I have to grab that foot and drag it down just a little to make it at the same height as that foot. Yeah. Let's also delete this other male because he's only there to show off the size. Okay, the next question is, bringing you back into here, which of these bases do you think would work best? The rocky one, which is the far side on this row, is what I currently have in there. But you could have the grassy, you could have the cobblestone. The only ones I don't think would work well would be the tech panels that are right here and the diamond plate down at the far end of this row. So which one of those bases do you think would work best? The rocky, what I've already got there. Okay. You can upscale the base, but then it's not appropriate for the on the map. When you're playing D&D and you're using a map, I'm gonna just use this guy as an example. That right there is the amount of space your character takes up if you are size medium. It doesn't matter if you're a 4.5 foot tall dwarf or a 7.5 foot tall half giant or Furbolg. You take up the same amount of space, which means that base needs to be the same size. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that he's actually interpenetrating that base. For example, as you can see, this foot is this foot here needs to come down a little because it's also having problems with being. Yeah. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this foot, and I'm going to make it even, you know, kind of pull it over like this a little bit. There we go. Then I'm going to X-rotate that out a little bit more. That's a bit too much. That's...
Hey everybody, look up underneath my thingy.
Let's pull it away from the leg. Just a bit. Yeah. There. Now his feet are mostly on the base. And that is the start. Now if we look down from the top, there is one small problem. He does have a lot of body mass over the edge of the base. He might tip over. So about the only thing to do to stop that is take that hip and kind of pull it a little bit. Whoop, wrong way. Not quite as dramatically tilted. And then we can just go ahead and pull him straight up. There. By not having him quite as far back, this actually makes him less likely to tip over. Top view. Because now only his arm and the axe head are actually over the edge of the base. This also means that he's going to be taller, because when we go ahead and load in Mr. Average Boy, you know, he's actually taller than Average Boy while still being somewhat crouched down. And he really looks big without being, you know, ridiculously, you know, I'm an ogre big. Okay. Oh yeah, that's the intent, isn't it? Okay, so now we hide the axe, we hide the loincloth, and we hide the base. We're going to export him as half giant body, accept. Then we hide the giant and make the axe visible. File, export. Half giant axe. Hide the axe, make the loincloth visible. Half giant loincloth. And then we make the loincloth invisible and show the base. File, export. Half giant base. And bing, ZBrush. Now this is a fresh session, unlike the, you know, so like this morning. There's nothing in there, no memory. We load in the body, and we click in the middle of the screen and drag down, and click Edit, and we have the base geo for our half giant. And now we append and select what we just appended and load in the loincloth. We append a polymesh, select it, import the axe, and append polymesh, select it, and import the base. And here is our buddy. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do one thing real quick. The loincloth needs to be at least one tier subdivided before we do anything. Now we're going to hide the axe, the base, and the loincloth. Because what we need to do is we need to figure out, is there anything we want to do to this expression? And of course there is. First things first, let's use the move tool. Shrink this down just a bit. Actually, we need to do inflate first, because one thing, when they draw the half giants, they tend to have the classic caveman brow. So we're going to use a little bit of inflation on the eyebrows just for the size before we even get to the shape. And we're also going to exaggerate their cheekbones and their jaws. Or his jaw. Because they're raw bone. They got much heavier bones than humans do. Much heavier bones than humans do. And then just a little bit of there. Now, that's our basic, or let's make the chin a little bit wider too, because heavy bones. There we go. Now we need to shrink this down a little and go inside the mouth, because this being human, I don't need a mouth that deep. Sometimes a dragonborn needs a mouth that deep, sometimes an orc does, but humans, or I should say human likes, don't. Okay. Now we're going to geometry and subdividing it a couple times before we deal with the expression. In fact, we can go ahead and dynamesh it before we deal with the expression. 768, blur 0, dynamesh. Undynamesh, or turn that off, and then give it one level of divide. Delete lower. Now we come back in. I said come back in, and we're going to shrink the mouse, and we're going to smooth out these two little divots that stayed behind. And now we're going to get to the expression. So we're going to the move, making, we're going to go ahead and drag down both brows. Oh, no, I said move, dadgummit. And drag down both brows. And raise the outer corners of them. Because we want him to be angry, because being a barbarian, he's probably going berserk. And then we're going to grab the corners of the mouths and bring them down. So that is our head. Mm-hmm. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to refine the musculature. I have to give the bottom of the pecs just a little bit of smoothing because of the way the geometry is, but we're going to go ahead. We're going to use inflate. Lower the intensity down to about 5, yeah, and then we're going to make it bigger. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build up here. He needs a big old neck muscles. And here. He needs a neck that Arnold would go, that's a neck. Increase this to 7 because it's going a little slow. Okay, then we're going to here and building up his deltoid. And I need to go in here. This right here needs to be smooth. That's a flaw in the geo, yes. Okay, now next I'm gonna hide the hands. Control Shift click and it makes only that part visible. Click on it again and it makes it invisible. And then you can make anything else you Control Shift click invisible. This way we have access to the chest a bit better. Alright, now there's going to be a bit more working on the chest. And we're going to smooth out parts of the chest. And then make it a little bit, make the mouse a little bit bigger so we can just. I'm assuming he's like a maxed strength version of this guy. You know, he's gonna be utterly, you know, He-Man would go, dude, lay off the juice, dude. You're just a little bit too big, man. Hulk would be like, almost there. Okay, now smooth that, and then we're coming down from here. Okay, and then we're gonna zoom that. Okay, and then we're gonna make this one a little bit even bigger because it's pulled forward a bit more. Yeah. We are trying to make him uber muscle. Uber muscle. And so we're trying to get everything in the right spot. So he's already starting to get some serious pumping. Okay, next quick question while I'm doing this, John. Will he have hair? The half giants in Dark Sun, like the mules who were half dwarves, had no hair. Then again, it was rather common in Dark Sun for everyone to be bald. Okay, we're going to slash now. And when we go to slash, we've got to make sure we go to stroke and go to lazy mouse and turn off lazy mouse, then drop that down, to about 13, and then shrink it. And then we're going to just a couple light bits. And we draw in there and smooth it just a little. Open it out. One thing to remember when doing large muscular dudes, and that's that your six-pack, actually that's way too deep for this. We're going to lower that intensity down to about 8, yeah. Anyway, six-packs, the muscles aren't even. I mean, and they don't always start in the same spot, and they don't go evenly to the same ending. Okay, let's make the arm visible again, because now we need to make the arm muscles huge. We need to make them big. Actually, while we're here with this tool, let's go ahead and come down and around here and down and around here, and then smooth it just to give it some deepiness. Okay. There we go. And here we go. And let's also go ahead and draw in from the side down here and smooth that. just because we want to make that little neck piece look good. Okay, and then there we go. And now back to inflate the muscles, the biceps in this case. Another thing, if you're going to do anybody with muscles, it's a good idea to go ahead and learn the basics on the skeletal anatomy, the muscles that are where and what kind of shapes they have. For example, the triceps kind of do this. They come around and they form, almost that, let me bring out that elbow just to help emphasize where the joint is. Okay. And then we're going to take our slash brush again and we're going to draw in. And smooth that, and hit level number 1 a couple times until it's more smooth. Smooth out the top, inflate, and we're going to inflate here. And then just because it's at a little bit of actually it's too big, shrink this down a little and let's increase the bone of the wrist. Make it obvious that this is the wrist bone, the pivot point for the hand. And now let's zoom in, if I can do this better, on this one. Now this bicep, we want it bigger, but it's not as taut, it's not as bulgy as the one on the other arm. What is bigger is the tricep, because that's what's currently flexing to straighten out your arm. Now we're going to kind of pull it out down here. Then we're going to come down here. Yes, he's going to be honking huge. He's half giant, what do you expect? Actually, that's... yeah. Now, we're going to come from here down. Because from a biological point of view, that forearm is twisting. And then we're going to come that down that way. And then we're going to come along like that. Okay. Now, once again, we're going to take the slash tool. And I'm going to go in and then smooth it. Go back to inflate, then very gently get here and here. Then with the slash tool again, we're going to shrink it, and we're going to just kind of edge out the muscles themselves. So that whole upper torso is now uber muscled. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and dynamesh it again. The reason for this is because of the muscles on the back and the neck. Now let's go ahead and zoom in, and you'll see right along here there's a zip line that we're erasing. There are some similar lines on here and along here. By hitting shift and dragging across, we're smoothing out those areas. Frame. Well, we don't want symmetry on. Alright, frame. Now, does that look muscular enough for you? And hello, Todd. What do you think? Is he big? Is he roid raged enough? No, he's not, because we forgot the serratus muscles. The serratus actually help maneuver the rib cage and help the diaphragm to inflate the lungs. And they are often drawn poorly in comic books so as to vaguely resemble ribs. They're not ribs. They are actual muscles. And they are located along here. And then there's a second set that comes in like this. There we go. He's got serratus now. There we go. We have the upper torso of our Raging Barbarian done. Except the hands. We get the hands last. Ugh. And as it is now 7-11, it is a requirement by law that we stop for refreshment. 4:20, we all know what that's for. Well, 7-11 is for a soda or a Slurpee. Yeah. But you didn't know that, did you? And now, just to show things, we're going to put the loincloth up, because we're going to now work on the lower body. Now, the lower body, we're going to put the belt is going to include a bit that goes underneath here. So to represent that, we are going to inflate the buttock cheeks until they almost fuse together, because that's where the thing is going to come from. Now, and we're going to smooth out. There, I'm going to come around up top side and out down the side. And now we're going to hit it with a smooth, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The smoother the buttocks, the better. I don't care who told you otherwise. And then we're going to hold on Alt and kind of impression on the side, because that happens on big bodybuilders. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There, that smoothed it up pretty nicely. And then okay, and then just kind of there. Now, we need to draw on the musculature. The first things first, we're going to make this a bit more cartoony than actual photo real, so it's going to look more like a cartoon. So we're going to come around with an inflation on the side. That will be the outside. Gonna come down here with the hamstring. And do the same thing on this side. And come out along here. Let's hide this just so I can draw in. I never can remember the names and muscles on the legs, but there's one up here that, and bad comic book drawings gets mistaken for unusually large testicles when they're standing next to each other with that muscle present, and then one that comes up this way. And we're going to smooth that right there. And then a bit there. A muscle right here. And one right here. That's kind of... Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And then we're going to make the knee itself a bit larger. And it's got a little bulge right there. Make the joint kind of visible. Okay. Now we're going to flatten the yeah. Okay, boots. What kind of boots? Is he going to have like fur top boots? Or is it going to be just like moccasins? What kind of boots is he going to have? The ankles are higher on the inside than on the outside. Something else to remember. And now slashies. We're going to come down like this here. And we're going to loop around under this muscle here. Okay, fur top boots. Alright, here's how we're going to handle that. We're going to load in a second copy of the body. Sounds weird, I know, but we are. Because we've already given we've already given the now look at, you can see the difference in what we did. How much bigger he is. Basically what happened, like I was trying to say, we've already given his calves some serious workout. So we're going to use the original version. I'm going to inflate it just a little. Without a musculature shape, just in general. On both of them. We're going to use this to get the basic cuff for the boots, the fur cuff. Okay. So here's, we're going to hide the body now. And we're going to subdivide this a few times. And now we're going to draw on where the cuffs are going to be from. So we're going to use a control. Let's just draw on a mask. And we draw on a loop. Or not so much a loop as much as just a rough area. Let's erase that one. A rough area around the top third of the calf or so that we're going to turn into our fur boot top. And we do it over here too. Then we go to Subtool, Extract, and we extract it at 0.03. Extract, Accept, Draw, turn off transparency, select this, Draw, make him visible, and delete the old one. That needs now to be dynameshed at 128. Actually, no, not 128, at 64. Undynamesh it, subdivide it a couple times. And then we're going to deformation, polish 100. Okay. Now that's just where they're going to be. We'll move this up there. Now we have time to make the belt, etc., for this loincloth. So we zoom in, shrink this down, make the loincloth visible. We're going to have to draw on where the belt is. It's going to come around this way. We're going to now hide that because we now we have it traced along where the top of the yes. We're going to come back around this way. Oh, shnikes, we forgot to do something. We forgot to go ahead and dynamesh and divide. And then delete lower, and then smooth out this area here where the buttocks got fused. Because this is where our belt will be going underneath for the thong. So, we now go back to subtool and turn the loincloth back on, just for sake of seeing where he is. Okay. Now, we're going to draw here. We're then going to hide the loincloth because we don't need it anymore for this. And this is going to come along back here. And blend there. Then we're going to come down this way. I'm sorry if you didn't want him wearing a butt flap covering his gluteus maximus, but you know I kind of have to. I am sponsored, you know. I'm sponsored by Anycubic, makers of the Photon, which is easy mode for printing these darn things. I swear, as one of their big competitors. And yeah, that particular resin, I got 12 successful prints out of an entire liter. And I mean 12 successful miniatures prints out of an entire liter. Okay, now this is going to be extracted out at 0.02. Extract. Now, we deselect it. We go back to the body and turn off the mask there. And now, we are going to Dynamesh this at 128. We are then going to one last bit of smoothing on the buttocks right here. Completely hiding the crack for good. Sorry. If you're a crack addict, I'm sorry. And then we're going to... I hate it when it does that. It pops up with that.
Saving file in progress.
Especially when it happens right in the middle of a stroke. Okay. And then we're going to smooth this out because we want it to not exactly follow the musculature frame. Now the next thing we're going to do is, because of the way that this loincloth is hanging, the bottom edge of this belt looks like it's almost blending in. I'm going to make this a bit bigger, the mouse a bit bigger. That's too much. And I'm going to pull out the belt. There. Now, divide a couple times. Lower. Next question is, John, do you want a belt buckle? And if so, do you want a buckle or a skull? Or big old orb? Yeah. He's a half giant, alright. He's big and bad. Okay. What we're going to do for the buckle, I'm going to divide it one more time. We have our belt now. We're going to hide everything but the belt. And we're going to go from the front. We're going to select a segment. Oh no, that's an angle. We want it to be mostly flat. So we're going to select a segment. And we're going to extract it at 0.02. Accept. Draw. Draw. And what we're going to do now, we're going to take it, we're going to Dynamesh it at 128. Oh, Nikes. Forgot to select the buckle before I Dynameshed. I'm going to shrink it, and I'm going to use /positive small, or kind of low. I'm going to sharpen the bottom and top edge of this. Okay, bottom edge, and let's bring this down a little bit. Top edge. Then we're going to subdivide it a couple times. And we're going to draw out the side. 1, 2. Oh. We're going to flatten it. I know how we're going to do that. We're going to plop to the side here. It's not at the angle I want. Let's pull it back a little this way. I'm going to trim rectangle. Control Shift keys and click to use it. Oh, okay. Delete lower. Now, we now have a flat front to that. We're going to Dynamesh it at 256 and subdivide it. We're now going to go to select rectangle because we want to turn that off. We want to be able to do other forms of selection when we try. Oh, there is. Okay, that's the underside of this arm. I thought the little shiny bits here, those little 4 dots, were something sticking out. Okay. So that's his buckle, his belt, and his thingy. Next thing we need to take care of is his loincloth. We need to give it nice, fancy wrinkly bits. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the standard brush, and as we did before, we're going to make sure we turn off lazy mouse and lower the intensity. Now, looking at the size of it, we're going to make it a little bit bigger. And what we're going to do, I'm going to show you another figure where I did this, and that's, there's a certain pattern that a hanging cloth takes. I used it on this guy. You probably can't see it very well. It's the shaman with the moose antlers and the helmet, bone helmet. Basically, what happens is up here there's just some wrinkles that kind of come in and hang down. Then they start coming under, and then eventually start coming down this way. Now, because of the way this is shaped, I need to smooth out here. and then just a little bit here. Okay, now little areas that we want to smooth in, and like right here, and right in here. Now we're going back to slash. Add, we want it to be on about 7, and as we usually do, we're going to draw our sharp corners about 1/3 of the way down on each of these wrinkles. Okay, and it's going to come down this way and here and then here, and then we're going to smooth out the ends of some of these wrinkles here and here, and then a little bit here, and then we're going to switch to subtract and increase it to about 12, and we're going to go under the center of the wrinkles. And then we're going to hit them with the smooth on the ends. Just a little bit, not a full run of tapping number 1 a few times to really push it. No, we just want to do it just enough to loosen the ends. And now, except for the axe and the hands, we're pretty much done. So, oh, no, we got to do these, the cuffs, and turn them into fur. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go ahead and deformation, relax, don't do it when you want to do it, 100. Okay, so what we're going to do, we are now going to go back to standard. We're going to load in an alpha, specifically alpha 8. We're going to switch to drag dot. We're going to make it bigger, and intensity of about 35, and not intense enough. I'm going to make it smaller a little bit and increase that intensity. Yeah. And all we're going to do is just going to drag this around things that don't have really long hair. Which coincidentally, this is the same thing that we would use on the top of, well, like really short buzz cut hair. There we go. And that is our, you know, like or an ushelka, you know, one of those Russian really heavy fur helmets. It has that same look to it. Now again, this is something that on an FDM printer it won't really fully show unless you've got your settings dialed in amazingly well, but the impression will be there. It'll be an erratic, kind of chaotic, noisy set. There we go. So now let's go ahead and make the axe visible. Before we do anything to the axe, though, it's time for the hands. And what we do with the hands, we start with inflate. We shrink the mouse until it's about the size of the fingers. A little bit bigger, so let's go from 14 to 16, because it was on 18, and then we hit shrink it, and it went down to 14, so 16 is probably about where we want it. And we're gonna inflate here. Oh, we need to change it from intensity 7 to intensity 11. This one goes to 11. And then we're going to draw the tendons. And at the base of the tendons, we're going to shift smooth them and tap one a few times because we want it to blend in well. Come on. Yeah. Then we smooth between the knuckles. And we're not going to worry too much about it because he's supposed to have big old burly hands with big old honking knuckles. And then blend between here and here. And then here. And here. Then a little bit here. Whoa! Yeah, a little bit here. Note to self, always remember. Do I have... Here. 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 Now, if you'll notice, the back of the thumb is kind of messed up. So we're going to go ahead and inflate inside that joint. We're also going to make the mouse just a little bit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And kind of inflate at the base here, because that's where the heel of the hand is. And now we're going to move over to the other hand. We're going to do the exact same thing. Draw on where the knuckles would be. Draw on the tendons. The shape of the tendons is not a parallelogram. It is a quadrilateral, but not a parallelogram. It is also not a perfect triangle. Okay, now next is the joints for the fingers. 1, 2. Don't draw them very big if it's something like an elf or another graceful beastie, a beautiful lady. You only want them really bulky for things that have, man hands. Barbarians, dwarves, fighters, gnolls, trolls, ogres, orcs. Anything with big burly hands. point for these knuckles, if you haven't watched me do this before, by making these little nubs and then smoothing out the space between, I turn the fingers from little bent Vienna sausages to actual fingers. And then I hit frame. Now, theoretically, all I really have to do now is mesh smooth this axe, and we're done. Here is a lovely muscled, half-giant barbarian. Except that's a boring axe to give to such a dramatic barbarian. Is there anything that you want me to do with it? We still have quite a few minutes left. Okay, runes. Here's the next big question. You just gave me a magic word. I'm familiar with the Elder Futher. What that is the script used by the Vikings. I am not familiar with Old Norse, nor am I familiar with Swedish. Do you want me to make something in Norse runes or in fantasy runes? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna do it like this so I can write it easier. On this side of the blade, near the bottom of the edge, well, first we're gonna go to load a new brush. And to do that, we're going to C, Program Files, Pixel Logic, ZBrush 2018, ZBrushes, Orb, and Orb Cracks 2. Then, turning off Lazy Mouse, increasing the strength, and shrinking the mouse. Now, on this side, it will say huge. And that's way too deep. Oh boy, yeah, that's way too deep. And actually, I shouldn't have spelled it like that. Instead, Haga East. Huge. Yes, that's how huge this is. And over here on this side, it's also going to say huge. It is in English written in Nordic letters. And then up here, we're going to flip it this way. We're going to write large. Okay, so our half giant now, pardon me, has the words huge and large in English written in the runic script on his axe. So I think that's about all we really need to do. I don't remember what it says on the orc boss's sword. I assume you mean the really big one. Where did I put him? Here he is. Okay, the orc boss's sword is gibberish. It's fantasy runes. It's just blah, blah, blah. Just random curvy, swervy, ugly things. Oh. Oh my God! It's everyone say hello to Danny in Miami. He finally made it to a live game where he gets to see this ultra massive, humongoid, overly muscled, half-giant barbarian to a single solid critter. Okay. This is our half-giant. And now, before we do anything else, we have to dynamesh him at 768. That closes any and all holes. It blends him into a single polysurface, or a single surface. About 10% of what he was 5 seconds ago, but it's still too much. So we go to a Z plugin, Decimation Master. And we are going to decimate him to 100,000 triangles. That's 50,000 quads if you do quads. So it's not a lot. It's actually about the same as most one-on-one fighting game characters right now, if not some first-person shooters. So we click on Custom. Ooh. Uh-oh. Do you see where it says computing please wait? That's a problem. That means it failed. I have to abort the Z script. Abort, abort, abort. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to smooth the polygons on the bottom just so that we can say we've done something different. Frame out. Frame again. And then we're going to redynamesh it. Currently it's at 1595 million polys, 1.595. There. That came out better. Let's see what happens if we try and dynamesh him, or if we try and decimate him now. Bing. It should say analyzing mesh like it is, then it'll go to processing with the percentage bar, and it needs to go all the way before it says computing. It needs to get all the way over there. You know, in theory, this is what Space Marines look like under their power armor. In theory, this is what they look like under power armor. There we go. Now it's reordering, writing file to disk, computing, reading the GoZ file, and it's 100,047. And that is our figure. Yay! So now we go ahead and export it. Oh, I'm still in my program files. So desktop, printing home, meshes, resculpt, Patreon minis, new. And this is our half giant Barbie. Yay! Oh, still got that on. So, yeah, dude is built. That is our half giant. Oh, we call barbarians Barbies all the time. So, yeah. Yeah, theoretically, based on how tall he is and how muscular I made him, that's supposed to be what's inside Space Marine armor. Yep. Oh, I didn't. Let me go ahead and just to show you, since you didn't get to see Danny. First things first, I'm going to load in a basic human figure. And I'm going to set him to the side. And move him over here. Now, let's import our half-giant Barbie. That should show you how big he is. He's still on a 25mm base. But look at that size. He's crouched, almost crouched down, leaning over, and his head's kind of tilted. And he's still about 6 to 8 inches taller than a human, if not a foot taller. How's that for huge? Mm-hmm. That's a proper half giant. Well, it's also, you consider that you could always say that, you know, give him some body paint, and you know, like some woad, and practice painting on that, or maybe paint a handprint on his face. That's okay, Danny. Now, it is now that time. It's 8 o'clock. I've been on for 2 hours. Been on for 4 hours total today. and made 2 full sculpts. The half giant Barbie, and earlier the overweight tubby Bard. Now, John, tonight, as soon as I get off, I'm going to be processing them and converting it to STL, and I'm going to be emailing you a render, OBJ, and the STL. The OBJ and the STL are the same. I like OBJ because it's easier to deal with, but most slicers prefer STL. It will be yours and mine alone for a week. Next Sunday, it'll be put into the file vault on the Discord. You are more than welcome, Kim. And thank you, Good Game Hunter. So I'm going to go ahead and start logging out so I can get your files out to you. And don't forget, send me your email in the Discord. Okay? That also applies to... as my brain just shut down. Who did I do the Tubby for? Who did I do Tubby Bard for? He needs to send me his email. I'm going to contact him on Patreon to send me his email, so I can email these files out to you. Yeah, who was that? That was Christopher Powell. He needs to send me his email address. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and be ready to log on out of here. And as usual, I'm going to hold up my hand. And I'm going to count down from 5 to 1. And when I get to 1, it'll be time for me to go bye-bye. And I'll stop the broadcast. So... I'll do this because of lag at the end of the show. You know, this is a live broadcast. Oh yeah, if you're not already, like, subscribe, hit the bell, blah, blah, blah. It's by law, we're required, you know, or not. I am sponsored by Anycubic, because of Anycubic Photon, easy mode for printing minis. And, alright, so that'll be a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1, and the lag monster. Yes, become a Patreon. There's a lot of lag.